Hey,
What's up, guys?
Long time, man. How are you?
I'm good. Jack,
good.
beard, man.
Yeah, can't grow it up here anymore, so gotta do something. All right, you ready?
Sure.
Okay.
Yes, yeah. Let's do this thing.
All right.
Like I said, it's been a long time. Hopefully I can agitate my brain enough to remember some stuff 20 years ago.
Yeah, I'm sure you will. Everybody we've talked to, and ourselves included, like the flood of memories that comes back. It's like a tidal wave. So
Yeah.
you'll just buckle up. There
Okay.
we go. So, welcome to the S.E.M podcast. I'm Jack Bryce, Zack Hewlett. We're your host tonight, and we're joined by Dr. Michael J. Hill. All right.
The doctor is in the house.
What's up, guys? How's it going?
Good. So we start this off. We go way back, then we go forward, and then we come back to the mission. So start us off a little bit with how you ended up in Scotland, how you got your call. That story.
Yeah. So I guess kind of like backtracking, I wasn't necessarily the most active in the church growing up, and then I had some good friends in high school, and they all went on missions, and they had kind of like helped me come back to church. I started going doing things, and then I just had a feeling like I should pray about it, and I did, and went and met with my bishop, got some mission papers in order, and then before I knew it, I got a call. Actually, what's crazy about it is that I had my papers in, and in being from Utah, they're like, "Oh, once you get your papers in, it's gonna be like a week and a half, right?"
Yeah.
Mine ended up taking a few weeks because it got sent in, then it got returned for some reason, like not like nothing on my end, like just like randomly sent back to me, and then I sent it back again, and they got sent back to me again. So it was like 3 weeks later I finally got my call.
Wow.
So yeah, and it was to Scotland, and it was crazy, like super stoked. If I had a choice to go, like that's kind of the choice that I made. Big fan of So I Married an Axe Murderer, so it just kind of fit really well.
That's not really applicable, is it?
Not even. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I had no idea what the mission would be. I had no idea, and before I knew it, I was clean cut and sending in mission photos. I remember, it's funny, I sent my mission pictures in, and I had just gotten back from like a ski bender, and I had like really bad goggle tan, and like the whole top of my head was like white, and I just had this like dark patch of raccoon. And I remember President Vriens telling me when I got there, he goes, "I knew you were going to be trouble the moment I saw that picture." He's like, so.
Oh man.
Yeah. So before the mission, you were like a semi-professional skier, right?
Yeah, I skied quite a bit. I skied a lot. So kind of touring around, filming, doing stuff, and yeah, so it was fun to kind of be over there and make that change. And then kind of getting to Scotland was a bit of an experience. So I left from Salt Lake. I had two friends going to Brazil the same day as me to the MTC. We all were in the airport together. They went to their gates and I went to mine, and I was by myself until I got to Chicago. Like it's like 12 hours by myself.
Nobody else from Utah was going, huh?
No one else from Utah. The first person I met going to the MTC was Caleb Sprague.
Nice.
So him and he shows up in Chicago, and I'm like, you look as lost as I am. And that was it. And then Kevin Anderson showed up out of California. And yeah, and then Sprague and I got chastised by the MTC president because we weren't clean shaven when we got there, because the beards grew in since we left. I'm like, I've been traveling for over 24 hours, like, and I had no way to shave. I'm really sorry. He's like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize. So
You tried. You tried.
Yeah, we really tried. Like both of us were. He's like pulled us aside. He's like, "Elders, when you left, you were supposed to be clean shaven." We're like, "Oh, we were. We promise." There's photos of our moms that prove it.
There you
Sounds
go.
like you might have been a little jealous of the quick fullness of your beards. That's hilarious. So this was when? Give us timeline. You
2003
what month?
October. So our
Okay.
first, because my first weekend in the MTC was General Conference.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, so it was like we flew in on like a Wednesday, right? And then we had General Conference that weekend. So
Cool.
yeah, it was an interesting experience too. I mean, looking back, right? Like you always hear the stories of the MTC and we all just show up there and like they're like, "Okay, all you international missionaries, go have a rest." And then like all the parents from the UK are dropping their kids off. So,
yeah, that's true. Did you guys get the warning that for whatever reason you'll go to sleep and feel like you can sleep for days, and then by 4 a.m. you'll be wide awake? Did you guys get that warning?
No, it didn't. I didn't anyways. Not that I can remember. But like it was kind of a slog to get there for us because we had a couple transfers and stuff. And
Yeah.
but because I mean, so I flew when I left Utah to Chicago. It's like a 4.5 hour flight,
Mm-hmm.
and I had like a 6 hour layover.
Oh wow.
So I was literally just like kicking in the airport. Like Sprague showed up like an hour before the flight, and then Anderson showed up like 30 minutes before the flight, along with everybody else. So
you were just hanging out for a while.
I was just like sitting in the Chicago airport like a goof. You know, I'm sure there's like members walking through the airport like, "Oh, look at this guy. He has no idea what's going on." He is.
Where's his companion?
Yeah. He's running away.
Yeah, they thought either like bailing or they're like he has no idea what's about to hit him. So
all right,
that's funny.
So let's skip ahead now. Catch us up. After you got home till now. You've been up to a lot of stuff. So
yeah, I came back. I went to Utah State. That's my hometown where I'm from. So Cache Valley. So it was easy fix. Lived in the parents' basement. And yeah, it was kind of like a good little transition back. I met my wife, freshman year. So we got set up on a semi-blind date, and like we knew of each other before, but so they used to live by me when we were growing up, and then they moved to Hawaii. And so her dad was actually my Boy Scout leader in my younger days. So so we got set up on a blind date by one of our mutual neighbors, and somehow she decided to marry me after a few years. I don't know. I think it's Stockholm syndrome still to this day. So, and in that time, so I started off studying biology, and then I decided to study landscape architecture. Then I went to architecture. I wanted to go to architecture school, so I ended up down at the U. So I went from Utah State to the U. Started studying architecture. Then I went into urban planning because the recession was pretty bad, and to be honest, I couldn't get into architecture school at first. Too much fun. And and then applied to graduate school. And at this time we'd been married for about a year and a half at this time. So and so I decided, or I guess a couple of years, and I decided to go to kind of like do the spaghetti approach. We applied to a bunch of graduate schools and ended up going to University of Hawaii. So that's where I went and did my doctorate of architecture and hung out there for a while. So we were there for about, was it like 5 years in Hawaii. Worked there for a little bit, did a lot of surfing, and then got a job in California and went out to California. He spent 6 years in California. Had my daughter and my son when we were there. So I got a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old now. And we were there. And then just recently, last few years ago, I got a call from a recruiter at Savannah College of Art and Design. And now I'm teaching architecture out here in the southeast in Savannah. So I live in South Carolina now, which is right. I'm like literally across the border from Savannah in Georgia. And I just drive across the river every day.
Nice.
So yeah, kind of a trip along there. It's been quite the adventure for sure. So a lot of ups and downs, a lot of in-betweens, fun callings, strange ones. I was a den leader, then I was a scoutmaster, done kind of a little bit of everything, taught Sunday school. It's been fun.
Yeah, den leader was my calling before my mission, and all those guys are married now, and it just like trips me out.
That's really weird.
Yeah.
I'm not too far off of that. So I'm
Wow.
So
all right. So now we'll go back to the mission. Walk us through what areas you served in, who you served with.
Yeah. Oh, so
if you can remember.
First area number 1, Orkney Islands. That was my trainer was Elder Brandon Egan. So, we get to the mission home after that wonderful train ride. Everyone's like excited and eager. We go off and do our day with, of chapping and realizing that none of us can actually understand what Scottish people say.
Yep.
And I come back and they all start getting signed off and everyone's like, oh, you're coming here. And everyone's like, Edinburgh, Glasgow. And Elder Egan's like, we're going to the top. So it took us 3 days to get back to our area from the mission home. So we had to take a train up to Inverness, took another train to Thurso, and then the next day we took the ferry across into the Orkneys. And it was winter, and it was cold and windy, and it was good. I mean, the craziest thing about being on the Orkneys, first off, moving there was that our apartment was older than America and had these just like solid rock walls, and there was no heat, and we had power cards. I don't know if you guys had a chance to talk about power cards yet.
Yep.
But like those power cards, you like the little box in the wall and you stick your power card in it. And Elder Egan being a good example or trying to be a good example is like, we're going to be frugal. So we're going to turn off the power at night. And we wake up and there's like ice on the inside of the windows.
Oh man.
I'm like, and we'd like make a mad dash to the bathroom. And then it was funny because there's a few times like early on, I'm like, I think Elder Egan's dead in the toilet because he'd fallen asleep or something on the toilet. I had no idea like missionaries got that tired until later on when I've done it myself, right? And so I was like, every once in a while I have to go like bang on the door. But it was awesome. I mean, that first area was a big learning curve. I mean, the first guy that opened the door when I was when we went out proselyting, I had no idea anything that he said to me. Like, I couldn't even recall a word of it. I was like, I just stood there like, don't know, man. You said something, but I'm here. And I just like, I'm a missionary from the church. And he said something else. And I looked at Elder Egan and he like interpret for me. And I was like, this is gonna be rough. He's like, don't worry. He's like, that guy was like extra Orkney. Because I don't know, like, what's funny about being on the Orkneys too is that everybody speaks with an upya. So they all talk like they're asking questions, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so I was like, it really caught me off guard because it has like such a Scandinavian twang to it. So, but then we went all over the islands.
I can relate with you, Mike, because I served on Orkney 2 years after you did.
That's right.
It's unbelievable. It's a different world altogether.
Whole new world.
So
Yeah,
I feel you.
I didn't also know how the scales worked when I was first out. And I discovered the deep fried Mars bar. And there's a chippy There's a chippy in Kirkwall. It was like 50p for a Mars bar. And I was like, done. Like, I'm doing this thing like once a day. I'm eating one of these things. And Elder Egan's like, dude, you're looking a little like, you're getting a little thick. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, no, you're just looking like a little bit bigger. And I didn't think anything of it. And I sent pictures home. My mom's like, wow, you gotta like gain some weight. And so finally he's like, how much weight have you gained? I'm like, I don't know, like 2 stones.
Oh
He's
my
like, 2
gosh.
stones. He's like, dude, that's 28 pounds. I'm like, oh crap. So Scotland was good for me for that because I went out like $1.50 wet and I left like, you know,
Oh my
about 3
gosh.
stones bigger. So but yeah, we did a lot of like proselyting out there and a lot of service. I mean, I can honestly say, I think we looked through the maps and I think we did all of Kirkwall. We knocked every single door. I remember one day in particular, it was raining sideways. Like literally, like we have pictures of us. The back side of us is dry and the front side of us is drenched because like the rain was just coming in like this. And I'm like, what are we doing? Like, why are we doing this? This is crazy.
Yeah.
But it was great. I mean, there were a couple families, you know, we started to get really close to were like mine and Ernie Flett. You know, he wanted to teach me how to play the bagpipes really, really bad. And I wanted him to teach me. So we'd go up to visit them. And then the Petries, I got really close to their son. And before I got transferred, I was only there for 3 months. So, but I did get to see like the Ba and things like that, which was awesome, right? Like nothing like an organized fight in the streets. Welcome to Scotland, right? Like the stuff I saw in the middle of that scrum was wild. And then we'd go do the service for Joseph Grote. I don't know if you guys did that when you were still there.
The pig farm, right?
Pig farmer.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. We would once a week we'd go off there to get our mince and eggs.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh.
And I remember whenever we had transfers, like or do exchanges like that. Obviously the Thurso elders always wanted to come to Orkneys, and they'd come over, and it was Elder McKay and Elder Cardenas, and they'd come up and we do service on a dairy farm. And so one time they came up, and I think I can't remember so I went back to Thurso later, and at one point in time, someone got stuck. And I think it was maybe both times. They had to stay with us longer than planned because of the weather, because they canceled the ferries. So we just like, what are we going to do? We don't have enough room for us to work here. We can't have 2 missionaries proselyting. The town doesn't like us anyways. Like, this is terrible.
Yeah, goodness, it's true.
So, but it was fun. We had a lot of good times there. And I mean, our apartment too was on, like, part of the route was by the Ba. And so the wall that they touched the Ba on was like one house over. So Christmas morning, I woke up and obviously it's Christmas morning, awesome day off, right? And I walk to the window and I just hear like grunting, and I look out my window and there's the scrum of like the kids' Ba, like the teenagers, like right pressed up against the window, and I can like hear them grunting and breathing, and I'm like, this is amazing. Like, this is so cool. So that was way rad. But like we had some really, really neat experiences up there. I mean, in terms of finding people and kind of getting out to places that missionaries had never been, and kind of being touched down. We made a plan, Elder Egan and I, like we had some members that lived off on some of the outer islands. And so every like other week we'd go to an outer island. So we get on the ferry, take the car over, and then we went to the Isle of Hoy and did proselyte the whole entire island one day, and decided we had some time to go see the old man of Hoy, like the stacked stones out on the cliffs. So we hiked out there, and the ferry guy knew that we were coming back, and like he starts blasting the horn, and we could hear him. He's like, I'm out of here. And so we like booked it down, and we could see him, and he's just like, burn, burn. And we're like flying down this road, and he sees our little white Corsa cruising down. So he like waited for us. He's like, I thought you Americans were going to be left here. And he's like, there's nowhere to stay here. So, But then yeah, it was great. And then trying to think, we got out to like Westry as well, and then Chaplaincy. Like we went to some outer islands. It was really awesome. Like it was cool to go see those places. But and then getting down to the other side too, like down to the barriers and down to St. Margaret's Hope, and so we tried to see to get out to those outside places that missionaries hadn't really been before, and use like the crazy map of like all the houses and fill them in as we went. But yeah, it was great. I mean, we ended up teaching our neighbors as well, which was kind of fun. And then we met a young man named S.E.M who was really interested in the church for a while, but just wasn't able to like get connected and committed because of his family situation. But it was good. It was a good place to like cut your teeth. And then after that, I got shipped down after 3 months down to Bridge of Dawn, and President Vriens was going to try something new, and that's where he decided early on. You know, we all go through those like phases of missionary work. I think mission presidents do the same of like, let's try this thing out and see how it goes. He decided he was going to like completely eliminate the notion of senior junior companion, and he put myself, Elder Anderson, and Elder West together as co-senior companions in a trio.
Oh man!
And Elder West was the district leader, and so it was like, I mean, it was like power struggle from the beginning, you know.
Oh gosh!
And so we're like ultimately it was like Elder West was like, well, I'm the district leader, so I'm gonna like usurp authority. And Anderson's like, I'm older than both of you, so I have more life experience. And I'm like, I'm just along for the ride. Like, let's figure this stuff out. But I was actually only with them for a few weeks. I only spent one transfer down there. And in the first half of the transfer, Elder France was with Elder Brown across town in City Center in Aberdeen, and he broke his leg and got sent to the mission home. And so I moved across town to go serve with Elder Brown for the last 3 weeks. So it was like first couple, I guess maybe 4 weeks, like first 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks was the three of us. And then the last was with Elder Brown. But like in that moment, there's Elder Anderson and I we had like this really cool experience where we were running down through through Bridge of Dawn is kind of set up. So there's like the universities there, University of Aberdeen and Old Town. And we're running through Old Town, and it's like beautiful cobble streets. And like we have this dinner appointment. And I remember very distinctly that this family basically said if we were late again, we were not about like invited back because we were like habitually late for dinner. And so like, we're like dead sprinting, knowing like we're going to be late. And this is like our only dinner appointment we have. We cannot lose this. But both of us, we early on when we got together and being young, naive missionaries, we're like, whenever we have a prompting, we're going to do this, right? Whenever that prompting comes, we're going to do it. And we just like knocked on doors randomly throughout our time together, and like always just got shot down. Everything was shot down, right? But like, I remember us both distinctly running down this road, and we got to the end and we both said, we got to go back. We're missing something. And we went back, we went to this one door, and I can still see it's a black door with a big number 5 on it. I could tell you if I walked down that road, I could point that door to you. And we knocked on it, and it was a kid from Ghana. And he's like, elders, I've been praying for you. Like my mom and I were taking the discussions back at home, and I didn't know how to contact you when I moved here to go to school. And like, it wasn't in our area. It was a sister's area. But like in the moment, it was amazing because like we both knew like, yes, all those times leading up to that almost felt like, okay, I'm going to test you out a little bit because there's something coming and I got to be sure that you're going to do it.
Yeah. So
ultimately it ended up softening the being late situation for the family. Cause we're like, we got to do this amazing thing, right? This is what happened to us on our way. But it was super cool to like see that work that way. And it really kind of set me up, I think later on for some more of those kind of experiences of just being like ready when the time came. But yeah, it was awesome. And then moving across town just like totally changed things because Bridge of Dawn's not like a real city based tracting area. Like we'd go down to like High Street every once in a while, but mostly to meet up with other missionaries. And so when I moved into the city center, it became kind of more like street contacting and street proselyting, which was totally out of my wheelhouse, like being from on the Orkneys and then being in Bridget Dawn. It was like a whole new thing, right?
Yeah.
And even like moving, honestly, even moving Bridget Dawn, like where we lived was kind of ghetto. Like, so I was like, kind of, I'm not gonna lie, I was like super nervous for a little while because like I think someone got beat up there like prior, and like there's all these stories about the place, and you know, and so I was like really skittish, and Elder Anderson had just came from like where was he at, like East Kilbride or something. Like he just came from like Glasgow, like or like Glasgow City, like the heart, or no, he just moved from Paisley. That's where he came. So he was like hardened to the world, right? And like I'm like went off the Orkneys and like coming out of northern Utah, and I'm like, this is terrifying. Like, where am I at? This is the ghetto. And he's like, this is nothing. We haven't seen a car on fire yet. But like it really did change like a lot of what I expected as a missionary. And I think too, like moving across the town was a whole different ballgame, right? Like it was a whole new experience because I moved to the upper side of Aberdeen, to like the bougie side of the city, and we did a lot of contacting and working with like the zone leaders, and we met up with the sisters a lot and shared, because we shared an area with the sisters. Like we only lived a block away from each other, and basically had a lot of overlap that would work out, and so it was fun. It was a different experience. We also, in terms of like enjoyment there, it was like £2 bowling on Tuesday on P Day. Like you could basically for £2 like bowl all day long. So we'd all just end up at the bowling alley and just bowl. Like, and it was great because like all of us would be there. Everyone came. And then we had investigators start coming with us. So we had this like whole little bowling crew happening. We also got asked to leave a buffet in Aberdeen.
Which one?
The all you can eat Chinese. They're like
Jimmy Chung's.
I think maybe that's the one. They're like, y'all gotta go.
Jack and I were going through our pictures, and I found a picture that has distinctively the Jimmy Chung's in like the mirror that was behind our table, and I was like, and I had heard when I was there, and I think Jack can attest to this, that they had said that previous groups of missionaries had been kicked out of there, and so we were very like to the T, had good manners, so that we weren't about to be the next.
We got kicked out because we ate too much.
That's what I heard that.
They said that like they cut us off. They're like, you've had enough. And I'm like, this is an all you can eat buffet. Like we're strapped.
I haven't had all I can eat.
I'm getting my 7 pounds worth.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it was a blast. But it was fun it was fun being there too, just because Aberdeen's obviously where we had zone conference, right? So for the region. And so when I was in Orkney, we came down to Aberdeen for zone conference, and it was cool to like have other missionaries come and stay with you and kind of like go throughout the city and see stuff and do things. So yeah, that was a blast. It was a good time. I remember one time like ending up at the zone leader's apartment, and this was I think when I came down from Orkney for zone conference, and they didn't have enough blankets. So I literally like slept on the floor with a jacket on top of me, like my suit coat. And, like, I was mad. I was like, this is terrible. I got stomach sick too. And it was like, I'm sick and I'm lying on someone's floor on a dirty missionary apartment floor with a coat on top of me, living my best life right now. So after that, I got shipped back. I got banished again up to the north. So I went back up to Thurso. So I went right from Bridget Dawn right back to Thurso. Wow. And it was great. I ended up serving with Elder Candido. And he was still learning a little bit of English when I got there. And I showed up and he goes, all right, so here's the keys to the car. And I'm like, dude, I don't drive. I don't got my license here. He goes, I don't have a license at all. I've never driven a car. And I'm like, I guess I'm driving the car today. So like trial by fire to like learn how to drive on the wrong side of the road. I'm like, I'm not making any promises. We're getting back, but you tell me where to go. So I ended up like driving until while I was on my learner's permit license. because you can drive for like it's like whatever, like a year or something, right?
Yeah,
And so
first year.
Yeah, with your passport. Mhm.
yeah, so I was just driving with my passport, and it was great. It was funny, like it was a blast to be up there. And then our district was who was in the district? It was Elder Martinez and Elder Menini. And so I was like the Latin storm. I was like he's stuck in the middle. And then Elder Garota was up there too. And so like all of a sudden where he lived, like they'd all get together and they could like speak enough
Spanish and
to each
French.
other that I would just kind of like sit there awkwardly. And they're like, "Oh, we're talking about this." I'm like, "That's cool. You just do your thing." But Elder Candido, he played the trumpet. It was awesome. So he grew up playing the trumpet, and he played a trumpet in a brass band back at home in Lisbon. And so like he would like practice his trumpet, and it was good. But we had some, I mean, it was fun to be back up in the north and experience a whole new place. I was up there for 6 months, I think. Is how long I cut it out there. Candido and I were there were like 2 transfers, and then he left, and then I had Elder Cottrell after that for another 2 transfers.
Wow.
So all the way through next Christmas. Yeah.
That's amazing.
So it was great. I mean, nothing like living up in the Highlands, you know, a lot of sheep, a lot of Highland coos.
Yeah, you got to be where when people think of Scotland, that's what they're actually thinking.
Oh
of.
yeah. And
Yeah.
and I mean, it's crazy to think like when you think of the Thurso area, like I try to explain to people, like you go up, you cut Scotland into quarters, and the top quarter is your area. So like we covered coast to coast all the way along. So like I remember we got a movie referral for a place that was 4 hours away from us. So like we like, all right, I guess we got to do this. So like we drove down to this like video referral, and this became like an investigator that we went and saw like every other week.
Oh man,
They're like,
Wow.
like it was crazy. And so, and
you
then
get
the
extra
miles,
miles.
yeah, the miles became a big deal. So all of a sudden we're like actually like walking in the city, and people are seeing us and proselyting. It was a trip. We also had a member out in a place called Tongue that we'd go and see as well. That she was a new member, that she actually had gotten baptized when I was on the Orkney Islands a year ago, like the year prior. So she had just joined the church. So we were still coming out to see her as well, trying to get her whenever we could. It was because it was hard for them to come back out to church, because it was such a drive, right? And
Yeah.
And it was, I mean, it was also strange about this whole process too for me is like I hadn't really been back in a chapel in almost a year, right? So I haven't been in chapel in Orkney. I went to the chapel in Bridgedon in Aberdeen for 6 weeks, and then I went back to like no chapel. So I was like back in this like visitors, like we were in like I'm trying to remember where we went to church at Thursday. I think it was a community hall, and we like laid the chairs out.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, funny story, like in terms of like that experience, I remember when we didn't have the ferries weren't running because there was a storm on Orkney. Sister Gorn, we didn't have any bread. And so like no one brought bread for the sacrament. And we didn't have like nothing inside like the women's hall, right? So Sister Gorn like had Starburst, and I like I remember like we like blessed Starburst for the sacrament one time. And like I didn't know like what do we say, like, right? Like please bless. And so we said like please bless these Starburst, right? And it was like trying not to laugh at like kind of like the craziness of what's going on. But like it was really great, I think, also to have that experience, because it made me realize like this is more about the idea behind it and less about like the thing itself. But yeah, like things like that would just became the norm, right? The other thing that was really fun about Thurso was one of the sisters in the ward, she organized a group called the Monday Club. And the Monday Club was a group of individuals throughout the area that had special needs. And we would go do things with the Monday Club as a service, and it was awesome. So like we did like karaoke with them and stuff, and we went bowling. And it was really fun. Like we got to have some really cool experiences like that. And we made some really good relationships, and not only with them, but like with members of the community as we served, right? And we had a couple really good investigators up there too. I mean, same sort of story, right? They start off real strong, and it's mostly the trouble we always ran into was like getting to go to church. Like that became the problem, is there was such a distance to go. That you had to be seriously committed. But yeah, it was great. I mean, wild things that did happen was we came home one time and had like mushrooms growing on inside of our shower, like legit mushrooms, like big ones. And so I called the landlord, and we were leaving for zone conference, and he's like, "Oh, I'll come over." You know, it was the landlord, and she's like, "I'll have her like partner was a handyman. She's like, I'll have him fix it while you guys are gone, so you just don't worry about it. Like, we'll come in and get it done and be out of your hair." And we're like, awesome. So we left, and I came back, and when we left our apartment, you'd walk into a foyer, and then you'd turn right, and there was the living room. Well, when I walked into our apartment, there was an entire wall missing, and you could see all the way back to the kitchen. And like homeboy decided he was gonna like fully renovate this house, and he like knocked out the back wall of the apartment. Like literally, the shower had a piece of plastic, and you move the plastic, you could like look outside of the neighbor's house.
Oh my gosh!
And I'm like, what happened to like fixing the leak and the mushroom problem? Well, I just figured while I'm in it, I might as well just take care of these other things, right? Like, and
these other things are making it open concept.
Yeah, like I'm gonna try something out, and I think he was just a few buckies into it and just decided, yeah, why not?
Oh my gosh!
So we had like a construction site going on, and so at some point in time, Elder Cottrell and I we've got to move. Like we just can't do this anymore. Because like we had no kitchen anymore. Like we were regulated to like one small portion because there's just dust on everything. So we stayed upstairs for most of the time. Yeah, it was wild. I mean, it eventually got done, right? You figure those things out, but yeah, it was really funny. Like,
oh my gosh, that's unreal.
Hindsight, right? I look at that now, I'd been like, well, you're gonna put me up somewhere while you're working on my house, right?
Yeah.
But like 19 years old, you're like, okay, sure, I'll just stay here, right? Big deal.
Jeez.
Breathe in some asbestos dust, I guess.
Guaranteed that.
Oh yeah, and like, but it was great. I mean, what was really, I think, enjoyable about kind of being up in Thurso was just again being back in the Highlands and seeing, like you said, Jack, like seeing like Scotland for what people imagine Scotland to be, and kind of like we ended up having Burns Night up there. I had Burns Night in Aberdeen, but I had Burns Night up there in February, and it was awesome because it was like 10 of us, right? It was like the branch. And they're like real Scots, you know?
Yeah.
So it was a lot of fun.
That's cool.
That is awesome.
After Thurso, I moved down. Trying to think in sequence if I went down to Arbroath and Montrose after that. So I moved down to there, and I served with Elder Drew. And so and Elder Drew and I were together. We were together for 6 months. So like I had this like another, I think it was like 6 months, like 3.5, maybe 2 transfers. And we were together for a long time. And so like, but he'd already been there. No, sorry, Elder Stratton. I moved down to be with Elder Stratton for 1 transfer. And I was his second companion. And Elder Taylor was his first companion. And we were together for 1 transfer. And then Elder Drew came in, and I was there with him for 2. So I was there for 4.5 months. In Arbroath and Montrose, just north of Dundee. That was a great area. That was a wonderful area. I mean, we had first time I saw someone baptized was there. And it was great. I mean, we had a lot of really great experiences, and met a lot of wonderful people, and again, kind of having one of those big giant driving areas. And then lucky me, they decided to renovate the building when I was there. So we ended up in another like
so
community.
There's a theme here.
There's a theme. I'm just like, they're like, you're bound. In fact, because then when we moved, I came out to you and I moved out to Cumbernauld. We didn't have a building then either. I don't think I actually went to church in a building till I moved to Edinburgh, and like that only time. So it was It was crazy. Like I remember, yeah, it was like a whole thing, like all the way through. I never really had a building. But it was good because I think the members were wonderful. I had a lot of really great experiences. I got really close to, Dave Herschel is Dave and Kirsty Watson are Dave Watson's who joined the church when I was there. And, we still chat and stuff, and we have those connections. And then the Jamesons, I got really close with the Jamesons when I was there, and it was awesome. I really enjoyed it. It was mostly just hard work and service. And we spent a lot of time kind of just getting things done. And then Saturdays, or P days, we'd come down to Dundee and we'd play football together and in the park. And we also, when I was there, is when we had when Donnie came. So Donnie Osmond.
Donnie.
Yeah, so that was the whole thing, right? We had to prep everything as part of the stake, and brother Jameson was the choir director for the missionary choir, and but it was great. It was a blast. We loved it. And then so yeah, I was there for a while, and then came out to Cumbernauld, and that was my first voyage out to the west coast of Scotland, quote unquote west coast.
Yeah, the Glasgow side.
The Glasgow side. Good old Cumbernauld. And I gotta serve with this tall drink of water over here. So and we were together for how long were we together? 3 months?
Just one transfer.
One transfer. That's right. One transfer. Because then I trained
at McDonald.
Elder McDonald, and poor guy, he just couldn't get rid of me. 4.5 months we were together.
Yeah.
4.5 months he had to stay with me.
I was there my last 6 weeks of 6 months, and then you came in and spent 6 months there. So
that's right. Yeah, that was fun. That was some good areas. I remember getting really sick there. Was it both of us? Is that when
you and McDonald got really sick after? But right. we had moved out of the bedroom because there wasn't mushrooms growing in there, but there was black mold covering the whole wall.
Oh man,
that's right. And we closed it off.
Yep, we just isolated it, and then and there was no heating. We had one space heater, I think, and that's in the room where we slept. So,
and we were growing potatoes in the windowsill. That was awesome.
Yeah, it was.
We decided one day we're gonna grow potatoes, and so we just decided to grow potatoes. But then we had some really cool experiences there in Cumbernauld. We had a lot of really enjoyable moments. So Jack and I decided, as our companionship unifier, we're gonna have fast for a tie day.
Yeah.
And once a week we fasted for a tie. So we would just work extra hard, and then we'd take the money and go to Tesco's and buy a tie. We'd buy matching ties. So we each had opposite matching ties, and I still have a bunch of them. In fact, I put one on the other day, and I told my wife, look, this is a tie. Let me tell you about this tie.
I bought my most expensive tie with you.
We bought those ones from Neiman Marcus.
Yeah. I still wear that one.
I bought two. So I bought the pink one, and I bought the yellow one. I still wear them.
Yeah, and then I bought the blue one. But yeah, I've got a picture of us lined up with our ties from that transfer. That was pretty epic.
I love that. I got that picture. And then that's where I picked up my kilt. I got my kilt from in Glasgow. So
one of my best mission memories actually overall was with you, and kind of back to the story where you had that prompting just to go, and you went and found somebody. We were headed out late at night just to do some chapping. We knelt down for prayer to leave the apartment, and I had this impression that we needed to go back to a family we'd talked to out by the bishop. And I was like, hey, we need to go to this family, and that meant round trip. That's all we would be able to do for the rest of the night. And you're like, are you sure? I'm like, yeah, I feel like we should go. So we went. That's the only time on my mission that we taught a whole family. Sat down with the whole family, and we taught them the plan of salvation. Their 5-year-old was teaching it back to us by the end. That was the only time we taught them, but that was a super awesome experience to have that. Mark and family.
Yeah. Yeah, that was amazing. We just started to go see them once a week. In fact, when eventually when I left, I went back and I saw them and I stopped by, and they gave me a Christmas ornament. So I have a Celtic dove ornament that they gave me that was like in their family. Like, we just want you to have this and remember us. So
Wow.
yeah, that was a really cool experience.
Yeah.
Bag of cookie tins and all. So I'm over there. It was great because when we go to the bishop's house for dinner, his wife would always make us cookies and stuff. But we had to bring back the tins, and we were like terrible at bringing the tins back. So like we'd stuff them in the bags and just be like overflowing with all these cookie tins. No, I remember that. That was a great one. We were together for Thanksgiving, and I was like, you know what? I have not done this properly. Like, we're gonna have Thanksgiving, and like we couldn't find a turkey, so I roasted a chicken. So we had like roast chicken, and we had Tizer, the wonderful bubbly Tizer drink.
Yeah.
And
Mashed potatoes, corn.
We did the whole thing. We're like, we're gonna do this right.
The
So
whole
we had
spread.
like Thanksgiving dinner. What's funny is that we ended up, after you left and we had Chris, like during Christmas, no one invited us over for Christmas. Nobody. Like, it was like this thing. I'm like, poor Elder McDonald's like, don't we normally like go to someone's house? I'm like, well,
Normally
it's a little different here. So what ended up happening was like no one in the zone got invited over for Christmas. And so we all ended up in Motherwell, at the Motherwell flat. And we had like Christmas together. It was amazing. I'm not gonna lie. It's probably better than going to Christmas at anyone's house. It was a blast. Because like everyone was there. I mean, it's like Elder Spragg, Elder who's he with at the time? See, West was there, Spragg. Man, there's just a grip of us, a whole bunch of people. It was awesome. It was a lot of fun. And then then I got transferred out and taken over to Edinburgh. So and that's where I ended up. That's where I died out. So I had 6 months. I had 6 months in Arbroath and Montrose, 7.5 months 6 months in Cumbernauld, 7.5 months in Arbroath and Montrose, and then I did 3 months in Edinburgh in Corstorphine. So I went over there, and Spragg was my companion. So sorry, with McDonald, I was McDonald we were together forever. Like, it just felt
that's
like
pretty amazing for a training relationship. 4.5 months. So you guys still like each other.
He just didn't learn enough quick enough. I blame it on that. So when he gets on here, you can be like, I heard that you're just not a fast learner. No, honestly, it's like in terms of like everything that's kind of going on, because I was the district leader at the time, and everything was kind of going on, like taking care of things and doing transfers and getting things done. I couldn't have, yourself and Elder McDonald, I couldn't have had better companions, because I think it was like so easy for those things to function, because it's like things just got done. But him and I got really sick. I remember we ended up like going into urgent care like twice, and in fact I remember I got so sick we had to do this when I was there. We had to do this like when we rededicated the mission. We're supposed to, all of us, go out to the mission home and do this stuff, and like the district leaders, the zone leaders, the APs, everybody. And I remember like I was like on my deathbed sick, and I had this weird prompting to like fast, and like hardcore fast, like not like 24-hour, like 48-hour, knock it out. And I did it, and I remember like getting like better, like 100% better. Like I went and hiked up Pratt's Hill. I did all these things, and like when we came back to the mission home and closed our fast, my whole body was just drained of energy, and all I could do was eat. But it was crazy because I'd been sick in my bed, like in bed with like crazy fever and nausea for like a week, 2 weeks, and then like that's it. That took it, like everything was gone after that. But that was a really cool experience too, and like being able to see that and have that experience of going up on top of the hill and dedicating the mission. Because when it happened and we were all up there, I remember it was like a wonderful, beautiful gray Scotland day, just like flat gray everywhere. and we're on top of the mountain. We're on top of Pratt's Hill, looking over Edinburgh, and we dedicate the mission. And like the moment we did, like the skies broke open, and like sun was like straight down onto us, like nowhere else. There was no sun anywhere in Scotland. You could see it, right? We could see as far as it could, but only right there. And that was like such a reassurance. And I think it just like sparked a new fire in all of us to like get her done. But it was great. I mean, and then when I was with Elder Egan, I had a couple other great experiences where we found some pretty amazing people and had some people out to church. And I mean, Elder McDonald, and it was awesome. Like it was really cool to have that happen. And yeah, Elder McDonald, like it does seem crazy. Like I can't imagine other people. I think he's probably just the easiest person to get along with, like in general. Like, I don't know if you guys had, obviously you came out with him, like you knew, like he's just so even killed about everything that I think it just made it easy. But it was great. Like I said, a lot of time, and I still give him a hard time for it to this day. If I see him, like that's all, we spent a lot of time together, you know? He ended up coming to Utah State, in fact. So when I was there, in fact, funny story. He came to my wedding, and he came down to Salt Lake because it was like during break, and we got married in December, and he came to the temple, and then like we started to drive back up to Logan, and it was like a blizzard, like crazy blizzard. And we get up there and we get back, and I'm like, Cameron's not here. And I'm like freaking out because Cameron's from Las Vegas, right? He's never seen snow. And I'm like, this kid is dead on the side of the road somewhere, and it's my fault. So like I like sneak out of my like wedding reception. I'm like, dude, where are you? He's like, I'll be honest. I started driving, that snow hit. I just turned around and I drove home. He drove literally from Salt Lake to Las Vegas in like straight shot. He's like,
for him.
I wasn't gonna do anything. He's like, I got gas and I got home. So made me feel a little better at that time. But
wow.
Yeah. But it was funny, like when he first came out, because when he came out, I realized how old I was in the mission, because he was quoting Napoleon Dynamite like constantly. Like it was just like every second word was a Napoleon Dynamite quote. Like
I remember that.
He got out like these pants, and he's like, yeah, you don't think they want a roundhouse kick to the face wearing a pair of these? And I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Like, this does not compute. So,
oh man,
I can relate to that. Having no idea what those guys were talking about.
It was like a whole new thing. I'm like, sure, yeah, I guess. And he's like trying to explain the movie to me. I'm like, I don't get it, man. It's like, I don't get it. Now I get it a lot more, but having seen him, like, okay, this is hilarious. But in the moment, it was like, no idea.
Oh, jeez.
Even the first time I saw it after my mission, I was like, this is what these guys are quoting?
It's just it. Yeah. I think it's good for me because, like, Preston's only 30 minutes from where I grew up. So it felt more relatable, you know?
No, I definitely spent time there too in King's store down in the basement, toys.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh man. But then so then after I got transferred over to Korstorfen to go serve with Elder Sprague. We were together for 6 weeks, and then why am I blanking on I can't remember my last man. This is terrible of me.
Very trunky. Very trunky.
I remember I did a lot of exchanges. We were like constantly, like the whole notion was that we should be serving outside of ourselves all the time. And so I went with every companionship in the entire zone. And Elder Muirhead. Sorry, it was Elder Muirhead. That's who punked me out. So but yeah, we had a lot of really amazing experiences in Korstorfen and just in the city in general, like in Edinburgh, like especially members of the ward. But like really cool experience was we were out tracting and just like we both felt super strong. I can't remember if this was with Sprague or with Elder Muirhead. We both felt super strong about this one spot. And we went out there and it was just nothing. Like no one's actually home, right? Like it was a weird time. Like it was the perfect time, but like nobody was there. It was really strange. Or like at least they maybe saw us coming and just decided like not today.
Yeah.
And then we're like, okay, well, let's go home and like grab food and like we'll regroup and then go back out. And on the way back, we're like, okay, this doesn't feel right. Where are we gonna go? And there's like two ways we could go home. There's like a really short way, and then there's like this roundabout way. And we felt like, okay, let's go this roundabout way. This just feels better. And as we start going, we see this guy that's like passed out on the curb, and we're like, I don't think we're supposed to talk to him. And so we kind of like keep moving, and I see this girl across the street, and I step across the road, and I kind of like what I do when I was street contact is I always kept tracking cards in my pocket. I pulled one out, the temple card. You guys remember the Salt Lake Temple card?
Yeah.
I pulled that and I was like, oh, have you ever seen this building? And like usually most people are like, no, I've never seen it. It's like perfect segue to be like, well, let me tell you about the temple. And I go, have you ever seen this card? She goes, yeah, I have that picture in my book. And I was like, what do I say now? Because you just ruined my segue. And I was like, wait, what book do you have? She's like, oh, I got a book from a girl on a train or on a bus. And one of the sister missionaries had given her a Book of Mormon just like in passing. Like it wasn't even like, it was like, hey, you know, they had a good conversation. Like, hey, here's the book. I would love to get in contact with you. But anyways, come to find out this girl actually lives in the apartment across the hall from us. And Sprague's like, I've never seen her before. I've been here for like 6 weeks. I've never ever seen her. And like we'd already been together for like half our transfer, and we'd never seen her.
Wow.
So literally she's across the hall. Her name's Lillian Weedy. And so we ended up teaching her, and it was awesome, right? Like just really prepared, really engaged. She ended up going back home. But I wasn't able to get to like contact him again, but it was awesome. Like to have that experience. We had a couple other people like that too, that we ended up meeting, a lot of African asylum seekers, which was just amazing, right? Like to have those like really spiritual experiences with them, and to see that the things that they gave up and the willingness they were to like prepare for better lives for their kids. And we saw a lot of those things happen. And then Elder Muirhead and I, like, it was like a workhorse, man. And we just got stuff done. Like it was crazy. I remember one time looking back at one of my like journals, like the white books. And we had taught like 36 lessons, and we had like 12 people at church. Like it was unreal. Like it was like we just worked and worked and worked and worked. And I think it was just because we were working so hard in terms of like when we were together, it was like we got to get stuff done because we're going to be leaving to go do splits in like a week. And so we just like hammer our area. And the other part about it too is what we were doing in Edinburgh, which was cool, is every Sunday after church, we had we all went to the same dinner appointment with a member from the ward. And then we'd go back to the mission home, we'd go to the mission home before we left, and we get a box. We had a cardboard box that said free stuff. And we'd load it up with books and videos and pass along cards. And we'd go down to the high street, to Princess Street, and we'd set up every single pair of missionaries up and down the road. So like both sides of the street, everybody, and we just blitz in street contact. And we do it every single Sunday. And we'd come back and we would have like, then we'd stop at the end of the night before we like disembarked, and we'd like share everyone's new investigators. And we'd come back with like a dozen new people to go see. Like That's it was cool. Awesome. It was super cool. And we just hit it so hard every Sunday that it was just like every single week. In fact, we had so many cool experiences there, like in terms of just like being bold. And I felt like by the time I got to that point, I wish I was that missionary early on, of just not being fearful of who I was. And I remember there was a gentleman from China, and crazy enough, he's actually reached out to me again, and we've been in contact. But like I found him, like, hey, how are you doing? He's like, good. I'm like, hey, I'm going to church. You want to come with me? He's like, sure. And he came to church with us. Like, I'm like, cool. And he just came, and he never ended up joining the church, but he has a book he has the Book of Mormon with our picture in it. Him and I took a picture together, and he was just visiting. He was visiting university, giving a lecture or something, and yeah. And since then, we've been able to email and talk and get in contact with one another.
Wow.
It's quite amazing, right? But it's
amazing.
like it was super cool. Like just that notion of like, well, why not, right? Why not just be that person and to share and not be fearful. But living in Corstorphine was amazing in general, just because we were right by the Edinburgh Zoo. So like every night you hear the lions roaring. Also, funny story, Elder Spragg and I chapped into Sean Connery's brother's house. Not even
way.
dead serious. And like there's pictures of him and Sean Connery like on the walls on the inside. He sounds just like him and kind of looks like him. Yeah. We're like, did you know you sound like Sean Connery? He's like, that's my brother. We're like, no way. And he's like, yeah, look, and he has pictures right there. We're like that.
Wow.
So
That's cool.
It was cool. That was a fun place. That was a fun city. There's a lot of like, we were there also during the 5 Nations rugby tournament or 6 Nations rugby tournament. So that's when everyone came. So there was Italy, like Italians there, French. There was, who else was in 5 Nations? Spain, Scotland, England. It was great. Wales. It was a lot of fun to have all that mix. It did make for some hairy experiences, right? People getting rowdy in the streets, but we were able to meet tons of people from all over the world, really a lot. We always ran into members all the time, right? That's like the city you run into members all the time in. We were also there during the Fringe, which is great, right? Seeing all the street stuff going on and kind of being in the midst of it. But yeah, and that's where I died. That's where I ended up going out.
So, and then you were able to go back with your parents after, right?
Yeah. So my parents came and picked me up from the mission home. We got to go travel around a little bit. I can go see places that I hadn't seen and take them to places that I appreciated and that I wanted to show them. So we ended up coming back to Dundee, and we went out to out to the west coast, way west, to Inverary, Inverary, out to where my family ancestors are from, and see some of that, because just do some family history stuff and check in, and it was a lot of fun. It was fun taking him on some of those some of those roads my mom still talks about, the single track roads. And she's like, I just remember you'd be like driving down this road at like 70, and all of a sudden you'd swerve to the side and a huge truck would go flying by, then you'd swerve back out. Or else you'd come around a corner and be like, sheep, and then you'd like pull around and let the sheep go, and so yeah, it was fun to take him there. Like hindsight, I almost wish I would have gone back as a non-missionary rather than like being in the missionary mode of like, I want to go back and see these things, because like it was still so fresh, and we saw a lot of really cool stuff though. And it was great to see Scotland as well from that perspective and share some of those parts about you, because I mean, there's only so many stories you can tell, and even now to this day, like there's stories that come up that that are the only things that like we'll get, right? So it's funny, Elder Anderson, so Kevin comes out to visit about every few months. He'll pop over here and we'll go surf and we'll go do some fishing and stuff, and we get together and just start talking, and there's like things that come up that we're like, oh my gosh, do you remember this day? And like we talk about the MTC or talking about serving together or serving around each other, because him and I ended up being able to serve around each other quite a bit, whether it was up in the Inverness zone or down in the Edinburgh zone, or just kind of being together. So it's fun to like have those moments and catch up. Him and I actually lived by each other for a little while. So it's been kind of crazy kind of seeing the changes of everyone's lives, right? Like that's kind of the crazy part, is seeing where everyone has been and what they've done prior.
That's why we're doing this too, is just to catch up with people, because it's been a long time and people have taken their own path. So it's pretty neat to hear.
Mike, I want to pose a question to you, because you're one of the senior missionaries to me, being, I'm the young buck on this conversation, but I want to understand or hear your experience when Preach My Gospel was introduced and your transition.
Yeah, that was crazy. I mean, that was a whole new thing, right? So like when I left in the MTC, we still had the booklets and we memorized the booklets, but it was strange in terms of how it was all working. Is like with it, the change in the idea from the missionary committee was that we weren't to recite the booklets, but understand the gospel topics and then speak about them in testimony, right? So when it finally came down to preach my gospel, it was like we were kind of prepared in a sense to have it. But what I feel like happened with preach my gospel is it felt just more liberating in terms of like what and how we would teach. The other thing that I loved about preach my gospel, and something that I did that I'm not sure like other people did, but I think it was helpful for me, was on my studies, instead of just like going through it, I really kind of hammered in to each idea and principle in the book. So I have my preach my gospel still, and there's like, I did not leave room in any margin. Like it's just notes and comments and scriptures and things like that. And I feel like that really helped me understand who I was and who my relationship with the Savior was. And even back to this day, it's like I go back there and pull out notes for talks or things like that that I gathered, and it's fun to see kind of like younger version of yourself in there. And along with that too, like the notion of having a study journal, like we never had that prior. And so like that study journal has also been another part of it, is like being able to keep those ideas and those inspirations alive. But it was a strange transition at first, but it ended up being a little more seamless. The only thing that I think that sometimes I feel like we had a better grasp on was like this notion of memorization that existed, like because we also had like the master scriptorian stuff, right? Like that we were all doing. So we all had like, I remember Elder Egan was like such a rock star at this.
Yeah.
Like he did
them all.
He did everything. And he actually started going through and memorizing every heading of each section of the Book of Mormon, so that he could go back and he could call them up all the time, right? Like it was amazing.
Does he have a photographic memory of sorts, or?
No, he would just walk around when he had downtime and he'd just like read them. And like, and then I would read them back to him. And I think what that really taught me early on, though, is as a missionary, was like, if you can study up all that stuff, right, you have that knowledge in there, and you can hold it and retain it, like you can call it back up when you need it, even if it's not verbatim. You get enough of it to understand the ideas. It's like you can share that idea of the gospel. Like you're not like digging.
The Spirit can bring all things to remembrance, but only if it's there to remember from, right?
Right, exactly. And it's like that muscle that you have to work. But I remember when he finished like the stuff, like the scripture mastery stuff, or I can't remember what it's called, master scriptorian. He's like, oh, I'm done. He's like, I need to keep doing this though. So that, he's like, I'm just going to start memorizing the headings. And I was like,
that's amazing.
It was amazing to see, like, and he kind of did it. I think he did it in the moment for me as well. Like he wanted me to make sure I did it. So I finished almost all of the bait, like the first and second levels of them. And I was moving into the upper tiers of like the topical based ones when I got transferred out. So it was great because I had a lot of that knowledge. And I think that was probably helpful for me a lot of times in sharing, because we had memorized so much stuff that it was easy to pull some of those things out in the moments that we were talking with people. The other thing that I think really helped with that was when we would share the gospel, is like we could turn the scriptures towards them, and we could like, I could say the scripture to them as they read it, right? Like, and it wasn't like, let me read my scriptures like this. It's like, you look at my scriptures and see it. And knowing now, like what that does for someone in terms of learning, like that notion of tactile, verbal, and action-based learning, like they've done it all, so then they retain it better. But I think what it also helped me to do is like having younger companions also helped me to see like how beautiful the notion of personable gospel can be, right? That yes, it wasn't always about this like right answer all the time. It was like, well, let me tell you how I feel. Let me tell you what that means to me. Let me tell you about what my relationship with the Savior is. And I think the more we did that, the more we saw success. And I think that's why later on in the mission, as I said, we were teaching so many people, because it was just like we were we were having conversations about the gospel and not trying to like get through lesson 1 and get through lesson 2.
Yeah.
So
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's kind of a trip to look back. It's been a long time.
I have to say that for someone who said you're not going to remember much, you remembered quite a bit. So
Yeah.
well done, Dr. Hill.
Oh, it just took a little bit. I mean, feel bad. Sorry, out of your head.
That was not bad.
No,
You're the top of the bucket.
that's
So,
right. That's right. You were the cream of the crop.
So, yeah. No, I mean, yeah, a lot of cool things. I mean, I got talks and stuff that I gave that I still call back on, and things I learned. And I mean, for most part, for me, I mean, the mission was a lot of learning, not being active in the church and coming out and teaching someone about it. I had to learn a lot prior and in the moment as they were learning as well. So like a lot of my understanding of the gospel happened in those moments. Right. And so like, I don't regret the way things worked out. Right. Because I think it worked out how it's supposed to. But it didn't make it always the easiest in terms of like, I didn't have the seminary answers. I didn't have those things already kind of like called up. But something that gave me a little bit of hope was when I was in Bridget Donor in Aberdeen. Elder Brown's dad had served in Scotland, and he had got permission from President Vriens to come over and to serve with us for a week and visit. So he was telling us a story about a missionary that was up. He got sent up to what's the islands on the
Stornoway.
Stornoway.
Yeah.
He kind of got banished to Stornoway because he kind of struggled a little bit, he said. And I mean, this is a long time ago. This is back when the mission was like, oh, you need to memorize your lessons, and if you can't memorize, you got to go home. And so he was struggling to memorize his lessons, and they sent him to Stornoway, and all of a sudden he started to like teach people and baptize people up there. And the mission president got like super nervous. He's like, this guy doesn't know his lessons. How is he teaching and baptizing people? Like, what is he telling him? Right. And he's on this island in the middle of nowhere. Like, we don't know what's going on. So Elder Brown's dad was the AP at the time. He's like, well, why don't you go up there and see what's going on and see what we need to do. Right. And so he went up, and when he went out with a lesson with him, he said, this guy was like, he's like, okay. He's like, so let me tell you a little bit myself. He's like, I'm not the quickest person, and I'm not the most learned, but what I do know is I do know who the Savior Jesus Christ is. And he like bore this beautiful testimony of the Savior. And then he bore this beautiful testimony of why he was there in Scotland as a missionary and what he was trying to do and what his purpose was. And Elder Brown's like, his dad's like, the Spirit filled the room. He's like, there's no way people weren't converted. Right. Like, and I think in that moment, it's like, for me, sharing that with me, he's like, it made me realize like, I don't need to be the master scriptorian. I needed to be sincere, and I needed to be there to bring people to Christ. And I think that helped me a lot in terms of moving forward in like the missionary work. It's because up to that point, I was like so concerned with like memorizing everything, having everything down, and like being able to like hold up to my peers. And it's the thing about it too is like, it's a false expectation that was created by myself. I wasn't like something that I was like, oh, you need to do this, otherwise you're not a good missionary. It was like in my mind, I was like, you're not a good missionary. And I think it's just one of those tools of Satan. He's just going to find a way to work weakness. But like, I realized too, like from that, the more sincere we are in the gospel, the easier it becomes, right? Like the easier our lives become. Like we don't got to kind of put on a persona that we're like something bigger. It's like, if you're just genuine and you're trying to do your best, that's what counts. And I think that made a huge difference. So
yeah, I know by the time we were companions, that definitely came across, because you had like such a different background than I did. Everything from snow and me being from Arizona to, just completely different. That really though, like we had our testimony in common, And that's what we shared with people. And that just came across. It came across to me as your companion, the love that you had for the gospel and for the people. And I know it came across to people on the doorstep even. So really appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of what I've taken down for me throughout this process post, right? Is that notion that it ultimately, when it comes down to it's our relationship with the Savior.
Yep.
That's what it is. Like, and we get stuck in these things and we get stuck in these moments and of oh, I should be doing this, no, I should be doing that, and I should be here and I should be doing these things, and it's like, or I need this calling, or this calling means so much, or it identifies who I am. And like, we all go through these moments. Like, I remember just going through this, talking to my wife about it, is feeling like the things that defined me were things like that, like, right, like having a calling in a certain way. And even in terms of a missionary, it's like almost feeling like you can hang your hat on the fact, like, oh, I was this on the mission, or I was that on the mission. And like, a lot of those times, it's like, frankly, it didn't really matter. Like, it was mostly just like the fact that you could get stuff done and you were organizationally like sound, and like, I don't have to worry about you. But it's like, in terms of like actually serving people, it makes, it's a whole new ball game. Like, I feel like some of the best missionaries I met were ones that were just genuine to who they were and just sharing the gospel in such a sincere manner. So
yeah,
I can relate to that, because I remember going into my mission, my patriarchal blessing made a note that said that I would serve in leadership positions. And like, I remember sitting in the flat with Jack as my trainer thinking, what's that going to look like? But I had skipped over the part where it said I was going to be serving in a land where my unique talents and my unique personality would radiate my testimony. And I didn't figure that out until the last 6 months of my mission. I wish I would have figured it out sooner, because like you said, it had nothing really to do with who I was or how I was teaching, or being a representative of the Savior. It was just being myself. And once I figured that out, and the last 6 months was amazing. And I served in the Aberdeen ward in the zone leader flat, and so I mean, it was an amazing time in my mission, because it was less about the numbers and the statistics and the things that we were out doing. It was more about just being genuine with people, and it changed the whole outlook of what I did.
Yeah, my last exchange was with Elder Anderson. So him and I planned it. Like, he was in Stirling, and I was when I was in Edinburgh, and we like, and I was like, I got one more exchange before I'm heading home. I'm like, because I ended up leaving. I came home 6 weeks early to start school, because of that weird October October shift. And so he and I got together, and both of us just sat down and we're like, we're so sorry. Like, we're sorry that we were those like really ignorant young missionaries, and like, we were so high and mighty, and like, we just talked about how like silly we were, right? Like, about the way we perceived things and how we thought about it and how crazy we all were. And it was really funny to like have that conversation. It's really funny now, like how close we are. And we look back, we're like, wow, we were just awful. Like, we were like not the people you want to be with. But it's true, right? Because you just get to that point, you're like, look, I'm here, and I'm getting this done. And there's no the only expectations I have are of myself and with the Lord. And I think that also, that mentality, I think, changes too when you think about how lucky we are in our mission in particular to be able to go and first dedicate our missions and then go back and give a report, right?
Yeah.
Like, when you go back and give that report, it's like, it's a whole new experience, because like, all of a sudden you start accounting for all those moments and all those individual times and those things and the people, and even with your relationships with your companions, and the things you said and what you did. And it's like, it changes a lot of who you are. And I think not very many missionaries get that chance to really like give that feedback, whether it like internal, external.
Yeah.
And I remember leaving that all of us up there. I mean, I don't think anyone's ever left up there and they're like not a little bit weepy, right? Because you're kind of like,
It's very personal.
it's pretty personal. And like you realize a lot of your frailties, right? It's like, here I am. Let me just expose who I am in its fullest and realize like all of the things that you could have done, but then realize all the things that you did do as well. And I think that's beautiful, right? Because that's when you build that personable relationship with the Savior and our Father in heaven is when you expose the parts of you that are real, right? And that's what it is. It's like, this is who I am, and this is me, and all of my faults, and all of the things I do, and all my little idiosyncrasies, and when you do that, it's like that's when you become better. And I think that's like what you're saying, Zach, is like that 6 months was like, look, this is who I am. I understand it, right? Like I have these quirks, I have things. I don't need to be anyone different. I just need to be who I am. And the Lord has brought me here because I'm me, not because I'm supposed to be like Jack, even though all of us wish we could be.
Yeah. Amen to that.
So, but it's pretty, I mean, it's great, I think, in that, because it does help you to kind of like hone yourself and to be honest with yourself. And obviously it's a learning process after,
Yeah.
Well,
hindsight is always 2020.
Oh yeah. In fact, crazy as I went when we were staying at the house, the bed and breakfast place, and I had a dream. That my entire mission was a dream.
Oh man.
Oh my gosh.
I woke up, legit thought, like in my mind, that I had just dreamt my entire mission, and it was like day one, waking up inside that Airbnb, that B&B again, and I was like, this is it, I'm starting. And I was like, and it was early, like I was like groggy, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what's going on? I'm not gonna lie, I panicked. I straight panicked, because I'm like, I don't think I can do this again. It's like heavy. And then I like came to, I'm like, oh my gosh, that was the craziest dream I've ever had.
That's wild.
But it was very eye-opening and very good to see like how ready I think I was to like I'd done it, and I'd been there, and I'd done those things and felt them, and to feel them all again. I just remember waking up and feeling exhausted. Like I just felt burnt out. It's like, if this is
you had done a whole mission in one night, man.
In one night. I remember just feeling like I dreamt everything. Like it was a trip. It was really crazy.
That is crazy.
But yeah, wild, that one.
Give us your favorite memory of the Vriens.
Oh man. I have a lot, actually. I have quite a few. So I got really close to President Sister Vriens. In fact, actually, when I lived in Salt Lake, I visited them often, and they came to my wedding as well. And I guess one of my favorite, probably the most impactful memories was I went to him when I was in Aberdeen, and I just said, I can't do this anymore. I've got to go home. And he put his hand on my shoulder, and that massive hand that he has, right? And you feel the weight of it, and he goes, and he looks at me and goes, Elder, you're not going home. And I was like, this is not really your choice. Like, I'm an adult. Like, I got to make these choices. Like, you're not going home. I'm not gonna send you home. We're not gonna do this. And he's like, what do we need to do right now to for you to feel comfortable to stay? And I'm like, okay. And we sat and we chatted for a while, and we had some good conversations. And then from that point, we had tons of wonderful conversations, and then we chatted often. But I just remember that moment, like I felt like he's like, it was very much like a Bill Vriens, like, not breaking it. I'm not giving in. I'm not going to pander to you. Like, you're not going home. This is not an option. Like, this is the military. You signed up. This is what you get. But I remember just feeling like after it, I felt so much stronger. That it just worked out, and like everything just became better, but yeah, we had some really great experiences from then on, and I just tons of them, stopping by and just visiting him after and chatting and hearing some of the things and experiences that he had. And oh man, Sister Vriens, she's a rock star, especially the day she wore the pig ears and the pig nose. I loved it.
Everybody's brought that up so far. So
Oh my gosh, it was
had an
amazing.
impact.
Very lasting impact is Sister Piggy Vriens.
I had the cleanest car award every single transfer, and I also had the shiniest shoes award multiple times. She was very impressed with my shiny shoes. But yeah, she was great. She always just made you feel wonderful, right? I actually got really close also to the lemons when I served in the mission. When I served in Edinburgh, I got really close to the lemons. So it was great. In fact, we'd stop by and visit with them quite often, and it was cool. So I don't know if you guys knew, but Elder Lemon actually worked in the church education department prior, and he worked on all of the revisions to the scriptures. So like when they modified the footnotes and they went all that stuff. So he is like, you want a master scriptorian, he is the guy. Like he knows everything front to back, and he'll like tell you these stories about going over manuscripts, and he was telling us stories about like how and meeting with the general leaders of the church and talking about why things should go where and the reasons behind it and the intuition, like the promptings that were led to some of those changes. And but he had amazing.
That's a couple we need to reach out to.
So
get on here.
Yeah, it was great. And even like how they ended up there was that they knew the Vriens in Salt Lake, and President Vriens he called them up and says, I need you here. No ifs, ands, or buts. I need you here. And that's how they became the mission couple, the mission home couple. So
wow.
Yeah, he was great. Him and Sister Lynn, they were awesome. Because that was fun. But they became kind of like, I mean, for me, they almost became like surrogate grandparents a little bit. Like I remember when I left, like I hugged and we cried as much as like I did when I left home. Like it was the trip. Like it was really wild. And they were crying. Like they're like, oh my gosh, we're gonna miss you so much. And I'm sure they did that. They just missed missionaries, right? Because they loved that experience. But yeah, it was cool. I mean, the whole experience was cool, right? I left. Yeah. I remember leaving in a suit that I felt too little in, and then leaving in a suit that I was like, I've totally grown out of this thing. Not to mention it had no more inside to it. It was just worn out.
Oh man.
My shoes were pretty atrocious too.
Yeah, I remember staying in that bed and breakfast, and the first thing I did in the morning is I took off my shoes and I threw them in the trash can because they were they had been resold 3 times, and I was like, there's no way I can resole these shoes again.
Yep.
They deserve to live in this land.
Yeah. Oh, I just toasted them. I ended up I didn't resole them the last time. I just kept a hole in them, and I just took a piece of cardboard and stuck in the bottom. And so I'd come home and my feet were like black with like soot.
Gosh.
Like, I don't even care anymore. Like I'm so over this. Like I'm just done. The inside of my suit had completely fallen out, so I just trimmed it. So like when you opened it up, you could see all of the inseams.
Jeez.
It was rough. Like I got to that point where I was just like knees like worn out, like I just both those suits got toasted. I did burn a suit, and I did burn a shirt. So I did torch them. It was fun. But we did the shirt out in the middle of the dunes up in Thurso. So that was a little safer.
Oh man.
Sprague and I burned a suit, I think. I think it was with Sprague. In Edinburgh.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. But funny story about Elder Sprague before we break up here is where we lived, and I hope President Vriens forgive us for this because it was terrible, but we lived above the Tesco's, and we both had guitars, and we'd open up our window and sit in our balcony. So we had this like little balcony like Juliet, and we'd sit out there and we'd sing at people in the Tesco's parking lot. And, like sing whatever they were doing. Like we'd like find somebody and we're like, and we'd sing at it every night, every single night for like weeks. I'm running really fast with my bags because it's raining. And like we're just going off. And then they stop and then they like look around like now I'm looking to find out where the singing is coming from.
Oh wow.
Yeah, great missionary experience.
We're talking to Sprague here in a couple nights. So
Yeah, ask him about singing to people in the parking lot.
That's hilarious. That's something that you'd see on like a reality TV show now, right?
Oh yeah.
That's too funny.
It was awesome. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Oh man. So funny. But yeah, there's a lot of crazy stuff that happened. I mean stuff we kind of like don't have time for and just funny anecdotal stories. And,
Yeah.
you know, I remember Elder France got poor guy. Like you guys need to have Elder France on here. He had some crazy stuff happen to him. So that what happened in like a week, basically in a week, his life went sideways. So we're at zone conference waiting for interviews, and one of the rails, like with the curtain rods, like on the stage in Aberdeen, fell off and hit him in the head.
Oh my gosh.
Cracked him in the head. The next week, he was playing basketball and he broke his leg.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so then he's at the zone leader's house apartment, and a car comes to pick him up to take him to the mission home, and he's hobbling out on crutches. And as he goes to get in this car, this dude jumps out and like proceeds to wail on him. Kid you not, this guy's waiting for a guy coming out of the same building on crutches to jump because he's apparently been messing around with his girlfriend. And Brother France is like, dude, what's going on? Get off me, man. Like, and we're all like, we're just sitting there like, what is happening? And then the guy's like, I'm so sorry. I'm looking for somebody else. And he explains the story. We're like, that is wild. Brother France, it was the craziest experience. I'm like, what is going on right now? This is crazy. Legit crazy.
Oh my word.
But yeah, we won't talk about all the games of Risk that we played. Some of those ended poorly.
Contention in a box.
Weren't you one of the purveyors of Pint Uno?
Oh yes.
I want to hear the story because I heard at one point that Elder Cotton Betteridge almost died from a game of Pint Uno. You all did?
Yeah, I think I drank like 30, like seriously, like 12 or 15 pints of water, and I was getting like delusional and like.
Oh my gosh.
Because you can't pee, right? The whole premise is like you drink and like you have to just stay there. And we just kept going until like we were like punch drunk with water. And I can't remember if someone just called it. They're like, we just can't do this anymore.
The backstory that I heard is that somebody peed for a solid 2.5 minutes.
Easy.
I was like, oh my gosh.
We were timing it, I think. It was in the zone leader's apartment downtown.
Yeah.
And it was like we were keeping track. Yeah, it was bad.
Oh my word.
The other thing that we invented was extreme spoons, where we put the spoons in the other room. And so you had an entire room between you and the card game and the spoons. And so if you were the person with your back to the spoon, you would just get obliterated. I remember like Elder Annika, like I took a knee to the face, like
jeez,
because he like jumped and like took me out, and I'm like scrambling to grab the spoon because they're in the bedroom. What else did we do? We also played a lot of killer pong. In fact, Cameron, that was the worst because Cameron's like a tennis pro.
Oh, that's right.
And so like we go to play freaking ping pong, and here he's just owning everybody. I had videos of serious welts from Cameron when we played killer pong.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's funny. I have this video where we videotaped it hitting, and you see the ball imprint, and then the welt rise up at the same time.
Oh my gosh.
I have this like circle rings all over, and he was ruthless. He would like put spins on the ping pong ball, and they'd just drop, and you'd like, yeah, he would just obliterate people. Yeah,
that's amazing. Oh my gosh, I never played very many of the games. I think people are scared to play with me because I might squish somebody.
We heard some funny stories. You have to ask Elder Barrett. They used to wrestle because Bear was a wrestler, right?
Oh, I
We-
wrestled Bear. I tried to flex my muscle, and he destroyed me. Like I was like, okay, I don't think I lasted 10 seconds. Like he had me in some chokehold, and I was done.
They
He
put
was impressive.
they put a big old hole in the wall where someone got thrown into a wall in their apartment.
Jeez,
Yeah.
that's crazy.
Mean, nothing like putting a bunch of teenage boys together and just being like, see what's going to happen.
Yes, that's very, very true.
But Pint Uno, oh man, that was a bad idea. That was just like bad from the beginning. Like, I don't know where we thought this was going to be great, but I just remember going back. I remember going back to the apartment after, and like both Brown and I just like passed out. I'm like, I'm amazed. Like, this was serious, some serious stuff.
Yeah.
Like dumb missionary things. Like, I had a great idea. Oh man.
Yeah, we all have those moments of brilliance, right?
Yeah. Sheer
We have
brilliance.
quite a few of them.
Oh my gosh.
Elder Cottrell thought we were gonna die one day up driving out to town, and I was driving and I came up over this hill and we didn't know it was like as steep as it was, and it turned and like we launched, and I remember hitting it and just like drifting this corner, and then it went like straight down, and he's like, dude, I thought we were dead. He's like, I thought we were dead. And like
The hand of God guardrail that caught you.
yeah, it was scary. Well, and what's funny is the guy we took the course in to get serviced, and we picked it up, and one of the guys was at the shop was like, hey, I did something extra for you guys. I think you'll appreciate it. And we're like, all right. And he put on a ram air filter and like an racing exhaust.
Oh
on
no.
our Corsa. And like it'd be like you turn on, it's like whoa, whoa, and like it was amazing. That little like hatchback Vauxhall flying through the town.
The missionaries are here.
Well, it's funny too, because so like Cottrell, he grew up driving like motos, so he was like way into motorcycles and GP, and then like I grew up with cars and driving fast, so like we were like a bad pair to begin for that. Like, welcome to Thurso. There's like no one on this road. They're all single track. You can just like haul through there, and all those hump bridges. I think we tried to jump every single one of them.
Jeez.
They are
Too
jumpable.
funny.
They are jumpable. Yeah, I don't remember I usually named our cars, but I don't remember what that one was called. Our one in Thurso, our one in Arbroath and Montrose was named Pengu, which is Korean for fart. I don't know why we thought like, hey, it's like inside of someone's gonna find this one day, like inside the light cover, we have like Pengu, and then like in there, and we have like everyone's names that were like drove the car.
Oh my gosh. That's too funny.
Oh man. Yeah, there's a few more of those I think we could dig up. There's some funny ones, but oh, we played cow pie. We played cow pie baseball in the Orkneys.
Jeez. Oh jeez.
We had a chicken ended up in the silage pit.
Oh
So
no.
Fished a chicken out one time out of the pig poo.
Oh my gosh.
What else happened up there? Oh man, Joseph decided we found a cattle prod, and he goes, and he had that Jack. Did he still have that Jack Russell Terrier? Did you guys ever see that?
I don't remember
Really-
the dog. I don't remember the dog. No.
Little Jack Russell Terrier. It was like just a sausage with feet, and
Maybe.
It's-
Now I'm thinking about it.
his name was Bob, and
Hmm.
he had this cattle prod, and we're like, well, how does it work? He's like, you can use it on the dog if you want. And Egan like whips it down and zaps this dog, and it just like flips. And the dog slept in his oven. Like it climbed in the oven to sleep, so it like sleeping in this oven. It just like bolted.
Gee.
I'm just like, whoa, these guys are wild. Joseph's
Amazing. Yeah, he was something else. Good guy.
Oh, you never can understand anything he's saying to you.
Nope. It was like he was talking to you with a sack of marbles in his mouth. It's unbelievable.
Oh man, cleaned out those pig stalls. We had to change. They had litters when we were there, and
Oh
we had
yeah.
to move the piglets out. And I have like pictures of me holding piglets by their back feet.
Oh my gosh.
Oh.
That's too fun.
I remember Elder Egan almost got kicked by a cow because we had to move cows in this when we were at the dairy farm, and he's pushing on it, and I'm like, dude, you got to grab the tail and like bend it up and pull it. And he's just like wailing. I'm like, that thing's gonna reach back and kick you square in the mouth. Or like,
Oh my gosh.
he's like, I've never seen a cow. I'm from Detroit.
That's even more funny.
Oh. Yeah, it was that was a fun experience because it was like very much like country mouse, city mouse. I'm like, he's like, yeah. I'm like, dude, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
Wow, cool. Well, guys, this was awesome. Thanks.
Thanks for coming on. Yeah, this has been a lot of fun for Zach and I. We're going to continue it as long as we can. Get as many missionaries on here as we can. It's been a blast, and it's been great having you on tonight.
Yeah.
Anybody who's interested, reach out to us. It's S.E.M podcast at 51spylaw.com. So we'd love to hear from you, and we'll maybe even have other missionaries back on as co-hosts and stuff like that. We'll have some fun with this. So
it will be fun.
Sweet.
And we've started publishing the podcast now, so they'll come out about once a week. We're getting a bank of them now, so we should be able to keep that up for a while, and it's available on YouTube if you want to see people's faces with what they're saying. Otherwise, you can just listen in on any podcast service that's available too. So
Right on.
thanks, Mike.
All
Thanks,
right,
thank you, Dr. Hill. Appreciate you.
Yeah, we'll see you guys later.
See you
ya.
soon. Bye.